Hey, it's Dave. Welcome back to my channel. So that was a Third World Man solo played by Larry Carlton. Well, played by me, but originally by Larry Carlton on the Gaucho album. But originally it was recorded for the Royal Scam album by Steely Dan. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about Steely Dan. Over the weekend we lost a legend. We lost Walter Becker. Walter Becker, I know in some of the early stuff wrote some of the music and the songs. You can definitely hear, I think, which songs are more his influence and which are more Donald's influence. And I think most of the lyrics, if not all, are Walter Becker's. It even says so on the liner notes in the Night Fly. It'll say something about the fact that he never really had to write lyrics, so he wrote them about himself. But I really think that a lot of it had to do with Walter Becker. Although, in my opinion, I really think that Fagen is. I think they're both really important to the band. Um, Although The Nightfly, which was all Donald Fagen, is one of my all-time favorite albums. I think even lyrically and even the covers. But songs like Ruby Baby, which is a cover of the old Dion and the Belmonts, and Maxine, which is brilliant on the piano, is just awesome. IGY and whatever. So it started for me around 1986. I remember my mother wanted me to do some chores around the house, stuff that was out of the ordinary. And she was like, "Hey, listen, I'm running to the mall. I'll pick you up a cassette." I used to listen to cassettes back then. She says, "What do you want?" And I said, "Get me anything by Steely Dan." And I believe she came back with Steely Dan's. She either came back, I can't even remember which one it was. She either came back with Steely Dan Greatest Hits or The Royal Scam. And and then shortly after I got the other. I pretty much think she got me Greatest Hits now that I think about it. And then I went and got The Royal Scam after because I really liked the songs from The Royal Scam. Um, Except on Greatest Hits, they had Here at the Western World, which was an outtake from The Royal Scam, which I think is probably one of the best songs on it. But that was my real introduction into Steely Dan, and I was like, you're talking about 1986, I'm a metalhead. That year was the year I bought Queensryche came out with Rage for Order, which was a huge record for me. That's still my favorite Queensryche record. In fact, I think after that they went downhill. I loved Warning and Rage for Order, and I always thought that Mindcrime was a little silly. Um, Metallica, same thing. Master of Puppets came out, and I was getting out of them. I couldn't listen to that record. I thought it was a cartoon of the album before, Ride the Lightning, which I loved. Motley Crue came out with Theater of Pain, and for that was the end of them for me. The first album I loved, Shout at the Devil I liked. Theater of Pain I absolutely hated. So they were done. I was coming out of that metal, like the hair metal was starting to really bother me. Rat, I was done with Rat at that point. I liked the first album there with Round and Round. I liked Out of the Cellar, and I liked the one that had Lay It Down, and after that I was done. So I was really getting sick of it. Maiden came out with Somewhere in Time, which I absolutely loved and was still a huge Maiden fan. Um, Sabbath at that point had already gotten rid of Dio, and they were kind of done. Um, so there was like a change in the music scene for me where I thought that the heavy metal stuff that was coming out was subpar. Scorpions were becoming a pop band with like Winds of Change and that type of thing, and I was really just getting out of that whole thing. So I ended up starting to listen to a lot of Steely Dan, and I thought the harmony in the chords were really something that I should be thinking about because I thought they were very interesting. And I thought it would be very cool to incorporate that into a heavier type of music. And if you go, I have a SoundCloud page. I think it's, I'll post the link to my SoundCloud page. But there's a song called The Big Angry that my band did. And it incorporates a lot of those types of chords where they're sonically a little bit more complex than your basic heavy metal situation, minor and major or seven. So, so I also got into a lot of Toto at that time too. I remember buying Toto 1 and Toto 4, And actually, it was like right around the time I think when Fahrenheit came out, and I love that. And I really like Lukather's voice. But anyways, getting back to Steely Dan, so then I started. I was in a metal band at that time, and I quit. I basically said I'm gonna pursue trying to do more of a smoother sound, more of that. I like that LA studio sound, and that was kind of like my go-to. And I eventually started buying up all the Steely Dan records, all the Toto records. And I got into other stuff as well. The Michael McDonald Doobie Brothers, Michael McDonald solo, anything that had like these interesting chords. Um, Shit like Pablo Cruz, even like a lot of what they call now yacht rock, Little River Band, anything that had like complex harmony chords where it was like very interesting, I was into it. So I think that Steely Dan though had like a special. They were the kings of it. And I also think that Steely Dan had a third member, which was Gary Katz. I think the producer of Steely Dan is really responsible for not only their sound, but it's he's a stronghold on that. If you listen to the two records that came out later, I don't think Gary produced them. At least it doesn't sound it to me because it sounds so bland. Two Against Nature and Everything Must Go to me has like this generic, super compressed. It doesn't have that wide dynamic sound. It's not that Steely Dan sound that everybody loves, and I really attribute that to Gary Katz. There's a great record, if anyone can find it, by a band called Ross Stylus. Bernard Purdy plays on it, Fagan helped on it, but Gary Katz produced it. It's like the only band he produced other than Steely Dan. They were an acid jazz band out of London, and they were fantastic. It's a great record, but it still has that sonic wow that you don't hear with the later Steely Dan. So, it's a sad day. Well, it's a sad week for music lovers when, because I never knew that Walter Becker was sick, but Walter Becker used to come into West LA Music, which was a store I managed, and he was very friendly with a friend of mine that worked there, who also passed in 2012. And we lost a lot of great people. I remember Andrew Gold was a regular that used to come in, and a great talent and a super, super nice guy. Walter was always the nicest of guys coming in. I remember he used to come in and always check out the speakers. He was interested in monitors and just a super nice guy. I think the band is really down to earth. I think, like I said, I'm a huge Donald Fagen fan, so although I think his voice might be starting to go a little bit, at least he might be getting a little too worn out from the tour, because I'm seeing a bunch of videos and I'm not liking what I'm hearing. But anyways, I thought I would post 10 Steely Dan songs that you should check out, or my favorite Steely Dan songs. I think that would be something to check out. Now, on this list, I'm going to try to stay away from the obvious. Like Reeling in the Years, I don't think I need to tell you to check that out. So the first one on my list is Only a Fool Would Say That, and this is on the first album, Can't Buy a Thrill. Great sound, great song, check it out. The next song is on Countdown Ecstasy, and that would be Your Gold Teeth. I think Your Gold Teeth is a great song. There's actually going to be another one in this list, but Your Gold Teeth is great. And I also think you should check out King of the World as one of my other favorites from that second album. The next album has a lot of decent songs, but nothing that I would say you got to check out or you got to listen to. I mean, Any Major Dude is cool, but it's kind of, it's not something that I think is something that's going to wow you to that point. On the next album, though, Katy lied, Your Gold Teeth. This whole record, except for Any World That I'm Welcome To, is all Jeff Porcaro on drums, and Jeff's awesome. So I love the grooves on everything. Jeff's definitely my favorite drummer of all time. He just has a feel that I love when I hear him. Things start to move forward. I mean, I do love guys like Steve Gadd, and I've got to work with Vinnie Colaiuta, and I think Vinnie's probably the greatest living drummer, period. But as far as of all time, and of course, I'm a huge John Bonham fan. Um, Oddly enough, I'm not a big Neil Peart fan, and although a lot of people give me crap for it, I just and I've seen him live a few times. He just doesn't do it for me. I mean, I think he's great for the band Rush. I think in that band he does a kick-ass job. I just don't think he has a groove that I dig, a feel that I like. So, anyways, I mean, I think he's great. He's just wouldn't make my top 20 players. You know, it's funny because people always talk to me about Eric Clapton, how much I dislike him. And it's not that I dislike him, and it's not that I think he's a bad player. I just think he's okay, and he wouldn't make my top 100 influential players to me. Just wouldn't make it. Um, when I hear him, it's just, I just don't care. So it's not that I don't like him, and I like him as an artist, and I like the songs. But as a player, I'm not like going, what was that? I do love Forever Man. I love the solo in it. Probably because it's the most simple and basic that he plays, and where it's not over noodling and it's actually a short little melody. But here I am sidetracking. All right, now we're going to hit to the Royal Scam, which I mentioned earlier. That's my favorite Steely Dan album. And The Caves of Altamira is probably one of my all-time favorite songs. I also think the outtake Here at the Western World is a song you need to check out. And I'm also going to say Kid Charlemagne and Don't Take Me Alive, because even though I think that everyone should know them, if you don't, get the hell on them. Carlton's playing on it is ridiculous. Here's a case where it's like I don't think that it's technically the most difficult things to play, but I do think that it's some of the most clever and musical, and that to me is far more important. You know, a lot of guys, especially even me when I was younger, we get caught up in the whole speed thing, and we get caught up in like trying to play and getting the best chops and whatnot. And you know, recently I did a post on Laith Al-Sadi, and here's a guy who combines both. He has some real nice technical stuff going on, but he's a super musical guy, and that's all you can ask for, And I think that of Larry as well. The next album is Asia, and I've completely lost count of how many songs I mentioned, so it's just going to be songs that I think you should know. And for me, it's Home at Last and Black Cow. Black Cow, and I did a lesson on it, is mainly just because that is like a lesson in chords and harmony. And Home at Last, because that's a lesson in groove. Listen to Bernard Purdy on that song. Playing the shuffle. He is a monster. And that leads to Gaucho, which would bring me to Third World Man, which is the solo that I just played in the beginning of this video. And Gaucho I love, and I love the Glamour Profession. Those three. I mean, Babylon Sisters is fantastic, but you probably all know that. But the Glamour Profession, Gaucho, and Third World Man. So whatever number of songs that is, that will be the end of my list. Those are the ones you really need to check out if you're a new fan to Steely Dan and you want to check out some interesting stuff. I mean, obviously everyone knows Peg, and everybody knows, the hits, like I said, like Reelin' in the Years. My band, we do Peg and Reelin' in the Years. We do them because we try to get people up to dance, I'd love to do a song like Third World Man, but we'd have to bring cots for everybody on the dance floor so they could take a nap during it, because, unless you're sitting there watching Steely Dan play it, it's not going to do it for you at a show. I just wanted to talk a little bit about Walter. I really don't, I can't say that he was a friend of mine. Like I said, he was a customer, and he was a super nice guy anytime I had to deal with him. But I'm a huge fan of everything that he did with Steely Dan, I should say, because I know he produced some other things. I think, did he produce like a Ricky Lee Jones record? And by the way, Ricky Lee Jones' first album is probably one of the most underrated albums of all time. If you're a Steve Gadd fan and you're just a fan of great songs, I highly recommend Ricky Lee Jones' first album, just called Ricky Lee Jones. She is awesome. And I saw her live a couple of years ago. I'll tell you a funny story. So I'm at this place in Santa Monica called Joe's Diner. And my friend Renee's the waitress there. And I said to Renee, Renee, is that Ricky Lee Jones at the next table? I couldn't tell because Ricky Lee Jones I had recently just seen live, and she had long hair. Now she has bangs. And so I'm like, and I wasn't sure if it was her. So I'm like, and she was with a girl in crutches. And I'm like, is that Ricky Lee Jones? And Renee's, you have to know Renee. Renee is like the old salty waitress. She's not old, but she always loved to have the salty attitude with people that she knew, that she was friends with. I mean, she was a really fun girl. I mean, she's totally like a sweetheart, but she was always salty to people she knew. She'd be like, how the hell would I know? It was like, I'm like, well, can you look? Because I'd like to buy her. I'll buy them dinner. She looked bothered. She was like, I'll check. I was like, well, ask. And she's like, I'm not going to ask. And so, like, now it's like I'm being a big pain in the ass to her. She's just acting up. So finally, I see her walking with the woman's credit card. I'm like, Renee, is it her? And she looks and she goes, no. I'm like, okay. So now she gets up to leave, and I said, I can't believe that wasn't her. She goes, oh, let me look again. I go, what do you mean, let me look again? She looks and she goes, Ricky Lee Jones. I'm like, you mother. I would have loved to have just bought her dinner just to say thanks for all the great music. I'm a huge Ricky Lee Jones fan. She's great. She's also great. She does backup singing on North Dakota with Lyle Lovett, which I love. She's awesome. Everything she touches. She does, was it Easter Parade, where she sings backup with the Blue Nile? I love her. Anyways, just fantastic. But it all comes down to that same group of people that play with Steely Dan, Steve Gadd's on drums. I mean, just listen to the groove he plays on. Again, you want to talk about why I don't like Neil Peart so much. It's like, listen to the groove on Ricky Lee Jones' Chucky's in Love that Steve Gadd plays. Listen to the groove in Asia at the end that he plays. And I know all the rockers are like, no, but and it's just like it's like masturbating in public. What I feel he does in Rush, I just feel like it's a lot of like hitting of every drum, but he is capable of a good groove. I do love Natural Science. I mean, I think his drumming on Natural Science is right up there tops. But I tend to like more of the guys with a little bit of a jazz sensibility. I mean, just listen to the groove that Vinnie Colaiuta plays on 7 Days by Sting. That's a 5/4 time that he's playing that you can actually sit there and go like this, and that's how killer his groove is. Or listen to the B section of Keep It Greasy. Actually, I think it's the verse where he plays in 1916, and it has a feel that you can dig. To me, that's some pretty impressive stuff. Where it's like I feel like that in Rush. You're listening to it, and it's like when they play an off time section, it's like here it is. They're waving their flag. It's not like hidden in the groove. But whatever. I mean, I'm just going on and on. I'm sure people will hate me for saying that, but whatever. Anyways, very sorry about Walter Becker's leaving us, and last year we lost a lot of great musicians. We lost George Michael, who I think is one of the best singers, and I always thought if George Michael would have done like a live record where he did all his songs with like an orchestra, that it would have been huge, because he has like the best voice that I think didn't really lend great to the pop stuff that he was putting out with the drum machines and all that stuff. But like, there's a version of A Different Corner that's live on the BBC. You can see it on YouTube. That's unbelievable. We lost Prince, which I was a huge Prince fan. We just lost too many people. It's just sad, and to lose them all this young. Anyways, that's all I got for today. Very good.
You're right on target. You hit the nail right on the head with your comments, what you're saying today. You're right on the money, everything you said.